Okay, now we're live.
So we'll call the February 14th, 2023 meeting of the Carroll County Administrative Transportation Committee to order. And since we do not have a quorum for the 15th meeting, there's Josh.
Hey everybody.
Hey,
We still don't have a quorum, but welcome.
Welcome back.
So there not being a quorum, we won't proceed with approving the minutes from the last 5 meetings. Turn it over to you.
Okay. I think I'm first on the agenda here. Move it over. I have a lot of things to finish here.
Well, thank you. Hang on by that.
Okay, yes, traffic counts are first. So traffic counts, I have maps here. If I scroll down, page down button. Page down. Where are you? Page down, there it is. Scroll through all those minutes.
Yeah, there's lots of pages.
There are many pages of minutes. Got a map in here somewhere. There we go. Found it. Okay. So, background information for those of you that don't know, would like a refresher for the public. We do traffic counts every year in Carroll County. We do them on a 3-year cycle, where we take the same counts every 3 years, same locations. Each year we do about 65 counts. I'll go slower if you want to write stuff down.
No,
okay, sorry. For me, it's repeated. So we do 65 counts every year. And again, we change them a little bit each time just based on what projects are going on, if there's any needs in particular. So I did send out these count stations ahead of this meeting. I did get some feedback from all of you, so thank you for giving me your feedback. And I made some changes to the locations based on your feedback. Particularly in Delphi, there were some around City Park that I added, some around Clay Street, and from last year, we did counts at Armory Road around the school. We're doing those again, so we can get that comparison year to year. And I think the final change I made was one somewhere in the northern part of the county. I forget which one exactly I added. There was one that was of interest. What's that?
950.
That sounds right. So that should be here. It's around here somewhere. Yes, so if you have any further suggestions, comments, anything about the traffic counts, feel free to let us know now, or again, you can email us after the meeting if you think of stuff afterwards and we can make changes. We're planning to start doing the traffic counts probably after April, so we can get the Armory Road counts before the end of the school year, and then the rest of the counts will probably be into the summer. So yeah, any questions, comments?
So, and I'm Josh, by the way.
Nice to meet you, Josh.
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
I took a long COVID break, so.
No worries.
I got out of cycle there, and then I was working out of town a lot. So I apologize for not being more active, but like going way back, one of the things that we had been working on, this is probably 2018-19 circa, was truck size and velocity.
Yes.
And I have just generally observed several places where we have CAFOs and major rutting into those roads at the entrances or around the entrances of those facilities.
Yeah.
And so just help me kind of jog my memory. What data do we collect when we put out those
The traffic counters.
traffic counters?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically the traffic counters collect volume data primarily, so just how many vehicles there are total. They can also collect classification data, which is, is it an automobile, a pickup truck, a bus, a bicycle, a semi?
Yeah.
How many trailers is the semi hauling? So that kind of data. Also, we can calculate percentile of speed data. So you can see kind of what the average speeds are on a road for different, bins of speeds. And that's primarily the data that we collect.
So is that data enough to make a recommendation for frost laws, or, do we have enough data with what we're collecting to aggregate it and say, this is a recommendation? I mean, can we extrapolate from that, but what needs to be determined to make a good recommendation on that?
Good question. So I can't say that I'm all that familiar with frost laws and things. So as to what the requirements might be on that front, I couldn't say. But the data we collect, we always collect at least 48 hours of data, and that's kind of what the state recommends for traffic counts. So in terms of INDOT, the data we collect is good for them. They approve of how we collect it. So I think the data we do collect should be worthwhile for whatever arguments you want to make for some project or whatever.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So one other thing we might consider is we're in the midst of doing a long-range transportation plan for the community. So those types of recurring issues would be things that we could put in the plan to address. And part of the benefit for that is, because as I'm sure you guys know, funding for transportation projects is very uncertain. And, with some of every time there's new transportation legislation, there's, potential for like new grants or new programs that could be in there. So if you have projects and recommendations that are already in an established adopted plan, it's then a lot easier to point to that and get access to some of those potential new sources of funding when they become available. And there has also been a recent emphasis with the government on what they call data-driven planning, where they want to see, okay, why are you doing this? We want to make sure this isn't just like, one politician says, I think we should do this road because it's by my house, sort of thing. Like, obviously we don't want that, right?
That would never happen.
So
never happen. I assure you.
So having data to back it up, and a project and a plan, then makes a bit stronger case when new funding sources become available. So it's kind of like some laying the groundwork to be ready when hopefully time comes. And we have seen some pots of funding dedicated specifically to road maintenance, road and bridge maintenance. So there's not necessarily any like new grant funding for that per se, but you never know. The community crossings program kind of came seemingly out of nowhere, so to speak. So things happen.
So the stuff that I've seen coming out of Department of Transportation seems to be a lot of green initiatives and things of that nature. And so where my head was kind of trying to tie this into is like trying to make, because every time we have to go repave something because it's been destroyed by running heavy equipment over it. Like, for example, we did, with our community crossing dollars, we did County Road 600 South, which is was used heavily during the 26 closure. It was blacktop. And then the very next year we came in and chip and sealed the blacktop. Now, I don't know, and our highway engineer has since left, so I can't ask him, but I'm inclined to believe that in 1 year's time, that had degraded enough that he felt the need to chip and seal it. Well, I mean, think about the economic, not necessarily the economic, but also the environmental impact of having to waste asphalt because of the rules that we're getting wrong, or the policies that we're putting or not putting in place. So I was trying to kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Trying to see what that looked like. But in terms of trying to, gain the insight or maybe the funding that we would need to look at this more deeply, because, I mean, it's just a brand new road being resurfaced in 1 year. I'm just like, man, so much money. So, anyway, that's.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'll mention as well, we did do a study on CAFO traffic generation and traffic counts. I think that was 2020, we said we did that.
That sounds right.
Yeah, so we did get that data, and since our counts are on a 3-year cycle, this year would have been the year to redo those, but it was a special project. I went more back to 2017 stations for which ones to do this year, since that was a bit of an off year. But I did include some of the 2020 counts as well in this plan, so there are still some of them by CAFOs, but it's not like we're studying them again this year. So.
And I assume if Josh had, some input on this and had a couple of roads that you would like to have under, it's not too late to get that.
Definitely,
So
yeah.
I think you have them. Can you go back out to the large map?
Yeah, let me here. There you go.
So the road section I'm talking about, I think is. Can you zoom in on this?
Yeah.
So I think this is the Cutler Burlington Blacktop. So that one's a good one that generates a lot of traffic. But that's County Road 500 South, and this is 600. So that's it right.
Okay.
So I think that and there's a CAFO right there.
Okay.
So and that actually where that dot is right where the road was destroyed. And it's still yeah.
Probably your counter that did it.
Oh no.
Just,
yeah, that single spike we put into the road to tie it down. That was what did it.
That must
For the benefit of the stream, I'll put it on the stream.
So that does raise another interesting question. So when a county road ends up getting a lot of additional traffic because of a road closure for state construction, is there any funding from the state to help mitigate the issues that they caused by virtue of the reroute?
Yeah, so we have run into that issue in Tippecanoe County as well. You may remember, I would say 2016, 2017, there was an emergency I-65 closure in Tippecanoe County. That caused unprecedented levels of traffic
bridge went away.
along other roads that were not handled heavy traffic. So that did cause some issues with that. I'm not sure what became of that, but the county highway engineer at the time worked with INDOT on something. I don't know if they ever came to an agreement that was outside of our office, but it was something that would be something that might be reaching out to the district about.
And
Yeah, not district, yes, sorry. You're in the Laporte district, Laporte district people.
yeah, they care so much about us on this end of the district.
We're just discussing it before you see if they could push it in for us to be in Crawfordsville rather than Fort.
Well, and it's even worse because like many years ago, but so Burlington's the very southeast corner, and the 22 connects Burlington to Kokomo, and it's 12 miles, and in that stretch there are 3 different districts because Laporte comes down and catches Burlington, and then somebody or 2 or I think it's 3, but it might be 2. But they had the road shut down for like 3 straight years for projects in different districts.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. It really is a pain, but that's life.
All right, so yeah, if you want to suggest any traffic count stations, you can feel free to email us. Just the same email that we send the agendas out to works. Yeah, and I'll try and probably get this finalized maybe in about 30 days or so. So if you can give those to me sooner than later, that'd be good.
What is the approximate timeline for the counts?
Yeah, so we'll start, I think, after April or so, and then it usually takes 2 months or so to get all the counts done. Depends.
Are we not doing state roads, or
Yes, so that's a good point. The counts that we take are all on, well, NDOT also takes their own traffic counts. And they do it on a lot of the higher functional class roads, so the interstates or the arterials, et cetera.
Mhm.
So we avoid taking counts on those, both because it's not as safe to do for our contractors, but also because NDOT takes those also every 3 years. So we rely on NDOT's data for that traffic count.
So the only other thing is we just completed, what we didn't really complete, but we're saying it's complete, a lane addition on State Road 39 as part of the redevelopment commission. Coming out of Indiana Packers, right there, we added an additional lane of traffic.
Yes.
So we have not studied the impact of that in terms of, it's supposed to increase. I mean, the premise of it was that County Road 100 South goes in front of Indiana Packers, and then it merges onto State Road 39, which almost immediately merges onto the Hoosier Heartland. So what we did was built a turn lane, so if someone leaves Indiana Packers, they go no stoplight onto the turn lane, which goes all the way to the interstate. So all in 35 or 40% of the workforce lives northeast of the plant.
Okay.
So it was supposed to alleviate a lot of that. Working with so I don't know if that's something that we can look at, or what are your thoughts on there? That's really your kind of
Yeah, if you
channel.
can zoom in on the Delphi area there.
Right.
Well, this is,
It's
the
a little
one that
further
leaves
out.
Delphi is further out.
Yeah.
You won't catch it on the Delphi map, but you can
Let's
see where
zoom in
those dots
here.
are located.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it looks like it's
north inside from the interstate, right?
Yeah,
Or
around
the
here.
Hoosier.
So,
That's the dark pink is the Hoosier, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's nothing.
Yeah, that we're taking.
obviously.
Yeah, if you like, I can look at index counts and send
Yeah.
those on to you.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything that we can learn from that.
From IP, from the NDOT's counts, or?
Well,
from-
I don't know if, even if we did set one there, I don't know. I mean, is there something we could learn, or I really don't know the answer to that, other than I'm just curious.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, it sounds like maybe you're looking at a specific turning movement type of count. So that's something that I don't think NDOT has very good data on, at least not from what I've seen. So and I don't know how much of a provision there is to make like a special request for that.
So if I brought another, when you put the traffic count, does it tell you which lane the car was in?
We can theoretically set up to do lane by lane counting, but we typically don't. It's more complicated to do it that way. And like if we wanted to get some specific lane by lane data, we could do that, but that's not our typical setup.
So in this instance, I think that would be the most important data point from our side. So what we would be measuring would be the traffic on County Road 100 North that's in that turn lane.
Yeah.
So how many people are actually utilizing it versus how many people they anticipate leaving the plant on a shift change.
Right.
So, that would be a really...
And actually, the incoming traffic as well on the far right lane.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that would be helpful, and it would also, theoretically, they shouldn't have to fully stop if they're going to the right in that.
Yeah, they shouldn't ever. That's the whole point.
So
is
that
they
would
won't
tell
stop.
us also if they're, what that speed rate is, or is it going to zero, or, it should, theoretically give us good information, so if we could add that. And that would be a lane by lane on 100, right there between the IBC plant and the intersection with US 421.
Okay.
So one potential thing we could do with that is we could make that kind of a special separate study. So especially if there's, maybe some other locations that you're interested in getting similar type of lane by lane data, maybe we could break that out from the normal one ones we're doing and kind of do a focused one. And then that way, if we do it as a special study, that will also allow us to potentially do it at different times of the year.
Okay. That
So if we,
would be useful.
for example, wanted to do one in the fall, say, okay, well, what are things like during the fall harvest season? Like we could do that as a special thing and then manipulate around our count program for a future year. So that's another thing to consider if, you thought, well, there's locations A, B, and C, or we might want that type of data.
Yeah. What would we have to do to initiate that?
Let us know. What locations you want, what the
I
important.
can't think of anywhere else that I would want a multi-lane thing. The only other, to really do that experiment well, you would also want to know how much traffic's coming in from the east side of the plant. Because that was a point of some heartburn there at some point where people were flying down I don't remember what that. Well, it wasn't just 100. It was the north-south road behind side 100.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there was, but I guess we won't know longitudinally.
Well, we could.
The delta there, but that's not necessarily the biggest problem.
And then another thing we could do is, so we'll just say hypothetically, for example, if we would want that in the fall, then we could set aside 1 week or whatever in the fall where we, set up counters all around Packers to get all the major approaches and then to say, okay,
Yeah, that could happen.
how much are we getting during this season, on the west side, on the whatever.
Do we need to know what the construction schedule is going to be for the utilities or the jail?
No, Lord, no.
No, it's
Right. As long as we're not at risk of skewing data.
I would, I don't know what the traffic interruption is going to look like on that, honestly. I would hope fairly minimal, but best case scenario is midsummer. But it could very well be a year from now on Dead Serious. Dead Serious. And we don't even have the option. The right of ways purchased.
So maybe we could just be in touch about that and then figure out if we want to try to do that now in the spring or in the fall, or just what would be required to best meet your needs.
Right. Josh, do you want to provide that? Your take on what you would like to see on that around IPC, that count?
I would rather just figure it out, because if I forget, I don't want this to be one of those ideas that just pops and floats off into nothing.
So figure it out now.
Yeah, just go ahead and figure out what we're going to do, because otherwise, 50-50.
We can always email you to get more details about it too, as a reminder.
But the only approaches would be County Road 100, east and west of the plant, and then the north-south road, which is what that number. I can look. Actually, and yeah, if we're not doing 39, then, nobody comes across the road, so the only places to get into are off of 39 or off of 100, either from the north or the south. So it would be 4 locations to know all the county road traffic into the site.
And I guess I'll clarify, we can get data on a lane by lane basis, or we can also get data on turning movements. Those are kind of separate data points we could collect. So.
And they're probably not coming. I think just 2 is going to cover it, because nobody's going to. That's a gravel road that's got the 2 jogs on it over there, and then there's nowhere to. If you come from the trash transfer station, you got to jog around a million times. So I would say most of that traffic almost certainly funnels down into 100 before the road that goes past the trash transfer station.
And the one that's 625 west,
Yeah,
that goes past the transfer station.
because that road just goes down to dead ends.
Right.
So, pretty much everything's, the only question is County Road 100. So I would say it's just east and west of the plant
Okay.
is the only thing that we would need to do.
Okay. And you were thinking maybe midsummer or so?
So if we're gonna do it, I would say before midsummer would be probably be the best time. Or wait until late fall.
Early fall?
I don't think it would really matter. Is there any timeliness from your perspective? I think this is really just a did it work kind of validation. Like, is it doing what it's supposed to do?
Yeah, I don't know that the traffic is that different at different times of year until the grain trucks. I don't know that they use that very much because of
they're going to the Anderson. It's all, I think it's pretty much a 24/7 operation, so it should be fairly static.
Okay.
Unless they don't have a shutdown, do they? Like a 2-week shutdown kind of thing, like SIA.
They don't do a 2-week shutdown. They do have some shifts where they're just cleaning the plant.
That's third shift every day.
Yeah, third shift every day, but it's rare that they would have a shutdown.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's not a good situation if they.
If they did something really bad. Gotcha.
The only shutdown I'm aware of was during COVID. They shut down to, make changes in the plant.
I know Ari was taking some notes when we were talking about this, so I think what we'll do is we'll have her send those out specifically so we can finalize the details. Part of the reason why it's important from our perspective is because to do this work, it's funded through a grant. So depending on when we do it, that'll affect which fiscal year it's in, which is totally workable. We just need to make sure we have everything pinned down. So it might not be part of this. If it's a separate thing, it'll roll into the next fiscal year, which is totally fine. But we'll just make sure we nail down all those details. So
Sounds good.
So Ari will send you an email in the next couple of days. We'll finalize that. Okay.
All right.
And if you can find out if there has been any success in getting NDOT to contribute to road maintenance on the roads county roads that were alternate routes, that would be helpful.
Okay. All right. That was it for traffic counts, I guess.
I think we talked about the ones in the city that were, we've moved some of those, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And there's a list as well if you wanted to look at the actual
Yeah, it looks like you've moved our
stations
added
there.
Packet and Union Street going over to that. And that would be useful, particularly if it's during the summer months, because we know that that's really an access road, the Packet Street there by goes into the canal.
Yes.
So-
Yeah. I saw there was a lot of parking lots, it looked like, out there, and a trail.
There's a trail, and so it'd be useful to know how much traffic that's getting.
Yes, because you have all this development coming in. I was like, we should know maybe how people get to the pedestrian, generators like the park and the canal and the trails and stuff. That'd be good info to have
And we're
before and after.
getting ready to do another trail from Carrollton Road over to that area,
Okay.
and talked about putting in a parking area with a couple of handicap parking spots there, and maybe even a restroom. So
Okay.
that data would be useful
Yes.
as we plan this. Yeah.
Yeah,
And on Carrollton Road, yeah, those are perfect spots.
Okay. Do you want me to add an extra one to Carrollton Road somewhere then, or?
No, I think where you have that is, well, actually, if we added one past Adams Street on the town side.
Okay.
I don't think it's gonna help much this year, because we don't know how long Adam Street will be in
Under construction.
construction, yeah, so
Yeah.
I think where you've got it is,
Okay. All right. So maybe we'll wait for next year for that one then.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Any more comments, questions? And again, you can email us after the meeting if you think of more things.
Do we have longitudinal data on this, or do we have consistency in the locations?
Yes. So I was saying kind of at the start, we do these on a 3-year cycle where we take the same stations every 3 years.
So, but the data points would be 3 years apart.
3 years apart, yeah, for each data point. Yeah.
So the only other, so I know I saw one of the dots is on the north side of Camden.
Okay.
It's, so you'll get a pick out of this one. We were awarded a $6.5 million federal aid award for the 75 extension, and nobody knows it, or like,
Yeah, why did that happen?
last July.
What?
We won, so what we were doing is doing it, the reason we put that there a while ago was to get traffic counts, because we wanted to build an extension of 75 up to the Hoosier.
Okay.
Well, so in July, we were awarded it. Nobody knows about it. The highway engineer's been fired. And
Okay.
I just found out today, because HWC called me and said, "You know anything about what's going on this on the federal aid job?" And I'm like, "Federal aid job." And that's
So, yeah, that's
I
the thing.
So I got only so as far back as we have on that road would be helpful for us with just whenever we get the data to look at it and say,
Okay, that was just north of Camden, you said.
yeah, it's it's not right here.
Okay.
So I don't know. I told you you're going to get a kick out of it. Yeah.
That is really amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we can see, we should have, I think at least a couple cycles of data, so I can see what we have and send that on.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. All right.
So when you getting that project started now?
Well, and then you had 2 seconds aside. So we appropriated all the money for it. Said, go get it. But we were told that we had like no chance of getting it. But like we're just going to go through the motions until we get it. Thing was awarded. We had people bidding on it in July of last year, and they never told me. Like never said a word about any of it.
Well, who did the bidding?
The highway engineer submitted the or did the RFI and took all the bids. So I was told somebody didn't score it, and that was what they were waiting on, was the scoring. And the scoring is generally done by the commissioners. So I'm tracking that down right now, but that's
Oh,
fine.
this is going to be lovely.
Oh man. So, but I mean, even if the commissioners dropped the ball, Kent never said, "Hey, I need some help here. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to lose out on this." And then, he was, I don't remember, a month ago or 6 weeks ago, was terminated. No. Anyway. I'm just a huge disruption in this meeting.
You are. I'm learning things that I didn't know, so it's kind of fun.
We're getting some traffic count stuff happening, so
Yeah.
thank you. We're glad you're here. We are so glad you're here, so thank you regardless.
Yes.
All right, are we good? Last words.
I'm going to
counts.
shut up now.
Okay.
Yes, I'm good.
No worries. If you have more to say, we're happy to listen. All right.
I have a couple of questions.
I think that was the end of my items.
Okay, so then the other item we have is to kind of bring an update on the NDOT projects. So this list is something that we kind of tend to see every few months. So I think probably the first interesting thing to point out is that there are two projects on here that have an NL in the far left column. And what that means is that these are projects that were listed previously when we did these reports, but were not shown this time when we pulled the data out of NDOT's system.
I see where one of those is.
Yes. And so part of the reason why this can happen is that there are, projects that are parts of bundles or things that, may be impacted by some of the issues we're seeing with just getting projects in general around the state and around the country. There are a lot of projects that we've seen, even in Tippecanoe County, that have come in greatly over the engineer's estimates, which for local projects, you can still make up the difference with local funding. But since these are NDOT projects, NDOT has some rules about when they can and can't fund projects that are over the engineer's estimates. And so that can really impact projects when, some are coming in over bid and they have to decide to, move other projects out to future years or potentially delay lettings. And it looks like that might be what happened with this project. It's listed as the C there on State Road 18, where it's a small structure repair and rehabilitation project. It was on a February 10th letting, but it's been moved to a May 10th letting. NDOT does not typically do May lettings, but the likely reason for this is because some of the bids were coming in over. So they're moving it out to try to get more favorable bids. That's just a guess. I don't know that. Unfortunately, we don't have a representative from NDOT at this meeting to give us any insight on that. But just kind of looking at some of the trends that we've seen in Tippecanoe County, as well as talking to other folks around the state. That's my guess is what's going on. So other than that,
What does NL? What's that mean?
not listed.
And what's the C?
That it changed, the letting date changed, yeah. And then most of the rest of these are S's, meaning that they're still on the same schedule. As new projects get added, farther along in the future, you will see some N's in that column as well, which there aren't any this time, but those do happen when we get a new project that pops onto the list. Any further questions about this item? Okay. Well, that's all that we had on our agenda, but we would certainly open up the floor to anyone who has any other questions, comments, or concerns that weren't addressed at today's meeting.
Yeah.
So we mentioned before the meeting, but I'll mention again during the meeting. We've had problems with getting a quorum for this meeting.
That's what I was just looking at.
Yes, it's been more than a year. So I was thinking that we could propose